It's Nina Hart. I'm here with Tanya Barrier from Pack Leadership Solutions, and we just wanted to come on here and kind of talk to you about the top 3 problem areas that we're seeing hospices encounter when they're trying to implement effective cost savings and really trying to make an impact positively on their margins. So we thought we would kind of go over the top 3 problems that we're seeing and provide you with some action items that will hopefully help you as you're implementing different interventions to try and increase your cost savings and revenue. So the first problem that we see is going to be growth. Of course, we all know that we need to grow in order to survive. So sustained growth is the most common problem that we hear hospices talking about. And really the solution to sustained growth is to remove the barriers. We know that all hospices experience barriers to growth. They come in many different forms, and those are the things we want to really attack to make sure that you're seeing the month over month and year over year growth that you need to see in order to sustain and grow your revenue and improve your margins. So the action items that we have for growth, we want to really do a deep dive into the admissions process. We want to make sure that your admissions process is not a barrier to you growing. And there's a couple different areas that could be a barrier. The most common that we see on this area is that your documentation and the patients that are not taken under care are not as thorough or involved in that process, in that admissions process, as you would probably want it to be to determine whether you're missing patients that are referrals that are appropriate, that are falling through the cracks. And then technical and operations processes, as far as getting that NOE and those technical components in place so that you aren't losing money on your admissions. And then the second area that's a barrier to growth is going to be quality. And we say that because we know that we're seeing that those publicly reported data items are impacting your reputation, your reimbursement, and ultimately your growth. So those HIS, those CAPS, and those patient satisfaction surveys that are publicly reported are going to start impacting your growth if they're not already. Tanya, you want to add anything to that growth area?
Not other than just to reiterate the importance of what you just stated. That's publicly reported, and not only are our patients looking, but also our partners as well.
Yeah, 100%. The second area is ADC. So your average daily census. We consider this to be different from growth because we're talking about managing your patients well, managing your clients well. And there's a couple different areas with action items to ensure that you're managing clients well and they stay on service with you. And we're going to cover those really, really briefly. But those areas fall under managing your clients well to maintain that ADC that you've worked so hard to grow. So the first area on that is going to be retention of the census that you have. So we know that there's a couple different areas that can impact your census retention. I'm going to hand it over to Tanya to speak to those areas.
Thank you. So probably the top key areas to keep in focus as you work through your operations daily is, of course, live discharges. There's several things and several implementations that you can put in place that would help with that to keep your patients from, going to the hospital when maybe it's something that could have been handled in the home. So that's
Absolutely.
a very important area to take a look at. Also, something that you should be doing is ongoing eligibility monitoring. So a lot of this relates to the documentation, and you don't want to be to the end of the rope and realize that the documentation just doesn't suffice for supportive of the patient's eligibility. So that's
Yeah.
something that's very important to consider as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then the other piece of that is regulatory. There's a lot of regulatory pieces that affect your maintenance of your average daily census.
Yeah, so a couple of key areas in the regulatory aspect of things is going to be avoiding Medicare overpayments. And, there's a lot of different ways you can do this as well. But that is an area that could potentially cause some problems in terms of cost savings when you're having to send money back to Medicare for a patient that really was eligible. We just didn't do a very good job with trying to document that in the system. So ongoing monitoring, very important. Another aspect to the regulatory piece is going to be survey readiness. You don't want to spend a whole bunch of time having to go backwards and fix issues that really could have been fixed up front. So being
Yeah,
prepared, that's very important.
absolutely. 100%. Thank you, Tanya. Hate to see losing money and losing revenue and, having those negative outcomes over a patient that was appropriate the whole time. So we definitely want to prevent that from happening where we can. The final area that we see is uncontrolled expenses. So that could be several areas that we're going to talk about, but really we're looking at a lot of budget items as far as indirect and direct expenses that may have creeped up or may be uncontrolled related to labor or other expenses. And so, in order to get that under control, we're going to make sure that our operations are as streamlined as possible so that we know what's going on, we know what's coming in and out, and we know whether or not that's within our budget and whether our budget is allowing enough room for our margins to be where we want those margins to be. And we're going to do that in two areas. The first is through utilization. And utilization is really a fancy word for making sure that we're a good steward of the resources that we have. Through procurement with our contracts and through productivity with our staff, just to make sure that everything is running smoothly and as streamlined as possible with our utilization management. And then the final area, the final action item is staffing. Staffing has been a huge impact for many organizations. And really what you want to look at is your labor and your waste. And I'll let you talk a little bit about that, Tanya. As far as waste for staffing, looking
Yes.
at how we can reduce waste in labor and indirect, where we're losing hours or we're having, overtime. If you have salaried employees, looking at productivity points kind of falls under the utilization somewhat, but really looking into how our staff are being scheduled. Is there waste in the transition between admissions? Is there waste in the caseload or demographics that we could eliminate or streamline? Those are really the things. I don't know about you, but when I think of staffing issues, that's kind of what comes to mind. Anything you want to add to that?
Just to your point, redundancy in processes, that's a huge form of waste that
Yes,
a lot of organizations
exactly.
don't realize. Overscheduling, not mapping things out appropriately. Yeah, I agree.
So these are just some areas. We hope that this was helpful for you. Tanya, did you have anything else you wanted to add before I wrap up?
No, I don't think so.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. We hope this was helpful and provided some action items for you. We do want to provide you with a resource if you need extra help with this and you're feeling overwhelmed with trying to manage all these pieces. We realize that internally this is a lot to do, especially if you're already running slim. So we want to be able to help you save up to 5% in cost savings, create some more margin without cutting your staff, without doing drastic things that impact your ability to operate and take care of your patients well. So just text hospice to 833-369-3581 and one of us will connect with you and help you get a call set up where we can talk about how we could help you manage this process better. Okay? Looking forward to it. Thanks so much, Tanya. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.